5,000 bob. Please note, tafuta mtu wako. Yes, tafuta mtu wako. Usiende peke yako. Ukienda peke yako utalia dimeja akienda kuperform.
Alright.
Yes, na ukienda na demi wako, make sure uko karibu naye kabisa cause anaweza kuacha ende Christmas.
Alright. That's, of course, shout out to Vibes Radio for being part of a major concert. Big deal. We're excited about that. Yeah. But right now, it's a big deal. In fact, it's a BBI.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
It's finally out.
It's finally out. So as we do it every single day, every Wednesday, dear Mr. President, and today we had to address the BBI report. Have you read it? Do you understand what it means? We know that the president received the report yesterday. A task force was set aside to come up with a proposal on how we could definitely change things in this country. And so we're going to take you through that. But just a bit of a brief. In studio, you've got Kwambokes, Mbunde, and Trix. Trix, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm great.
Yeah? We've been waiting for this one.
We've
And it's finally
speculated and, you know, then finally it's out.
All right. So just for me, I think it was about a month ago we had the conversation around Punguza Mzigo and we saw what happened. There were some interesting recommendations in there, but it fell flat on its face, did not take off. But now BBI, which the president and
Former Premier
Raila Odinga have come together, set up a task force, and yesterday we saw even Deputy President Ruto there to receive this report.
Yes.
So what are the highlights for you?
I think the highlights for me, especially in spirit of Dear Mr. President, has to do with the devolution bit of it, because there are specific, recommendations that, and remember, these things are coming from the people.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were doing consultation all over the country, and they came up with this report. So these are things that you, as a Kenyan, want. Now, some of these things were also in Ekuru Aukot's.
Yeah, because some of the things I've read, I'm just like,
Punguza
mzigo much?
Exactly. Yeah. And so this has to do with money following functions. You're having devolution happening, and there are certain roles that were supposed to have moved from the national government to the county governments, but then the money stayed with the national government. So this is proposing that all the money reflects there, and the percentages be increased from 15 to 35% in terms of the cash, and then changes in the county leadership. But those 47 counties have actually been retained, which I think is a good thing. The former premier had actually asked for the former provinces to be, revived, or said regions that were mapped up back in the day. Then gender in top county leadership is being called for, cutting waste in counties, and then counties must also produce, which is, I think, very forward thinking. That is if we implement.
Implementation is where we're going to get to implementation, but let's just go back to why the BBI. Of course, this is in, every time we have elections, it messes things for 5 years. For 5 years, the economy is dry. There's no investment.
Yes.
People are worried. There's tension. It's insecurity. And this is the reason why we've decided, or the president has decided alongside retired Premier Raila Odinga to just come up with something that could, give the nation a rebirth.
Yes.
And so what are they proposing? In terms of, we lack shared beliefs.
Yes.
As a nation, and there's some things that have been proposed in, our shared beliefs, okay? And then empowering the young. It is very evident that most youth in the country, and in this report, are saying that they don't feel included.
They don't.
Youth don't feel included in national matters. And then a shared prosperity, which, we will talk about what things they're putting in together, and also accelerating East African community integration. This has been proposed in the BBI. And then making politics more inclusive and accountable.
Yeah, and this has to do also with gender representation. A lack of it shouldn't be a token.
Tokenism.
Yes, tokenism should be dealt away with, and that is encapsulated here. As far as the youth are concerned, we're being told that there's going to be a 7-year tax holiday for young people going into business to be able to go into it, engage in entrepreneurship.
And for 7 years.
7 years
without taxes.
Tax holiday. Yeah. But at the same time, as one of my analysts has actually pointed out, there's going to be an increase in the tax group. So you might get that holiday, but then wind up paying more.
Wow. All right. There's also fighting corruption. We're going to talk about that because there's some things that have been proposed there. Devolution that works. Same thing you've asked. Some of these things have been this is the reason why we got devolution, but have they been implemented? And of course, a smaller government. Ladies and gentlemen, remember you can call in 0719 012 700. if you've read the BBI report or you've got any questions, but this show today, we want to make recommendations on how this report can get to 47 million every single Kenyan, at what time it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with fighting corruption. There's some things that have been proposed there.
Yes.
I saw something that says for whistleblowers, you will get 5% of the corruption money that has gone out.
Hello,
What are we feeling about that?
Yeah, I think it's good to give people incentive to snitch.
Finally, you can become a professional snitch.
Yeah.
So you're just waiting for all these corrupt stories. Then you're the one who's doing the investigation.
Yeah.
Then you're the one who's snitching on your neighbor that this person has been participating in illegal activities.
Yeah. And I think there is ESCC has been doing its thing, but it's been held back by people trying to make basically use the law to evade going to prison. So do you think this incentive will work?
It might work, but it's literally the same thing as the investigation that happens. We have the DCI being, upping their game in terms of investigating and trying to bring to book various corrupt individuals in society and in leadership. But at the same time, what difference will it have? Because we want to see people who are perpetrating corrupt acts being brought to book. So whoever snitches and gets the money or whatever the investigation yields, at the end of the day, it's about getting to the level of prosecution and asset recovery, which is the biggest deal, because what we are losing due to corruption is money that is meant for the common mwananchi. So whatever means they get to this level, they have to ensure that they go through to the very end of that cycle where we are having people punished for corruption and the government getting back what it had lost through corruption.
All right. Of course, there's a huge conversation around inequality in the country, in terms of development, in terms of, just making sure that every single person in this country feels that they are represented in the national government. Sure. So speaking of national government, so they're introducing the premier. This was a conversation. It was hearsay, and now it's
finally it's confirmed.
Yeah.
So the premier is quite interesting. It deviates from the previous premiership we had, because now we're going to get the premier from the same majority party that the president will be coming from, as opposed to the NEWSROOM regime where we had the premier from the opposition.
Yeah. And so when we have the premier, we're also talking about the deputy president. The powers have been shifted.
Yeah.
The premier has more powers than the president.
Yes, but then he is basically, in my view, implementing the manifesto of the president.
Yeah.
You get, and then I love that there's that. Then there's the DP. There hasn't been any indication that the role of the DP will be different, but at the same time, we have the opposition being the position of opposition leader being brought back in full effect.
Yeah.
And then that will bring back the representation that we feel that is lacking in the current system right now.
The power of the leader of the opposition has also been increased.
Yes.
He or she will have to come up with a shadow government to keep, and which I feel is great, because when you have just the premier, dealing with, or rather the opposition dealing with just the cabinet, but you have also people dealing with the cabinet ministers. Speaking of cabinet ministers, Kenyans don't know the word secretaries.
Yeah, so we're going back to cabinet ministers.
But I think this is actually good for the government, for the government and also the citizens, because right now the opposition is dead. They are barely doing anything. The only thing they're doing
they're part of the ship. The
handshake.
The handshake. So we really needed something to actually come up. Yeah.
All right. Presentation of representation of the electoral system. There's a lot of things that have been proposed there, because one of the biggest challenges with our elections is we want free and fair elections, but every time elections is done, there's always complaints.
There's complaints.
Yeah. So they're talking about ensuring that whoever wins the presidency must win 50% plus.
Yes.
And must have at least 25% of the vote cast in half the counties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
my biggest fear with something, especially in terms of the voting, they want to replace IBC. And I feel that most of the times when someone loses, that's when they usually get an opportunity to replace IBC. So I think they should remain with their other suggestions, but the bit about replacing IBC with new people, then I think their contract is going to be around 3 years. And for returning officers, it's only after one election. They can only participate in one election. So I feel that IBC should just remain the way it is versus now meddling with it.
All right. In terms of devolution that works, because this is one of the major challenges. Money, we've been losing money. Counties are complaining that they don't have enough funding to be able to, execute county services and county and development. So they're saying first we're retaining all 47 counties. There was talk of, some counties being reduced, some being merged, but they're retaining all. That's not happening. Gender in top county leadership, tokenism.
Yes.
Have women reps been working? The idea of women reps.
Remember
I think it depends on the county.
Yeah, there are some counties where you discover that the women rep used to be the governor's clan day or something. So, at least right now, guys can actually fight for roles,
or maybe have set roles.
Yes,
because when you look at them, sometimes it's a question of, and also have some checks and balances for what they're doing. Because sometimes when you look at them, you find this county's woman representative just focuses on women. Some just focus on youth. Some just do a few things with people with disabilities. I mean, perhaps they should be held accountable. As much as you're given that set position, you have to be held accountable for and deliver.
I'm curious in terms of the governors, because sijui ni BBI yangu ndio iko na shida. Because some areas they are saying the deputy governor has to be female. So is that an assumption that, especially the prime minister, they said he is like this, not a he or she. Yes. Ama ni BBI
I think it's just the lingo, but
it's
just the word.
Yes. Because I think it was just an assumption that it has to be a female when it's a deputy governor. No. So most roles have to be gender balanced.
Then now we're back to tokenism.
Yes.
Because what if someone is not? What they've proposed is that every single party has to make sure that there's inclusivity to ensure that women. They also promote women in those positions, so that there's no idea of tokenism, where you just pick someone random. Hi, you're the only baby this place. Come, let's put you in this. And that's what's been happening.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about reducing the size of government. This has been a very contentious issue. People saying that we have the size of government is too big and there's most wasteful and it's a burden to the country.
Because of the salaries
we
that
pay
are
too many
coming from
salaries.
our taxes. So I think that is a good element. But some feel that this might be in contrast to element 4, that is about making politics more inclusive and accountable. And Kenya has grown homegrown. So we're having all these new positions. They want an inclusion in the executive and a strong opposition. That's something that's been added on. So when you look at trying to, they're creating more posts, but also trying to reduce that the size of government. So how is this going to happen?
So what they were saying, what they're proposing is there's some counties that have limited, you have a few people, but then you have the same number of officers or offices like big counties. So those ones, you just, because for example, Wajir County, if you say that you need women rep, you need this, you need all these CECs, and they don't have the amount of population to be able to take care of those salaries,
to, say, Nairobi,
they can be reduced. And that's what they're saying. One interesting thing that I saw, and I was just like, tick, sitting allowances scrapped.
Nice. Well, I'm not sure.
Sitting allowances is scrapped. And for this, we're talking about sitting allowances for public officers on salary, and wants the government to enforce the powers of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to rationalize all public sector salaries and address the large discrepancies in income. Imagine all this you saw that video, which county was it? I think Embu or Kiambu, where the county MCAs were talking about allowances for a trip. And the budget that should be spent in the county, and they were like, where is your sitting allowance? Your trip lazima ikoe. So now with scrapping of sitting allowances, I think we're going to find there would be no benchmarking trips.
Yes. Or if they're going for those trips, they're going for the right reasons, not just to get money, and the motivations will be different.
All right. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been mentioned in this one. And for those who are watching right now, we put out a question on Twitter and on Facebook. This BBI report is, the rebirth of the nation being proposed by the president and retired Premier Raila Odinga, and of course the deputy president who was there to receive it. And the question is, Boxing Day is being scrapped. Guys, I don't know if you've read this report, but they want to scrap Boxing Day. I'm 100% with it because I don't understand. But they want to replace it with National Cultural Day.
Yeah.
How are we feeling about that?
Perhaps that, Boxing Day was never relevant. We never gift as the West does, and that's where we got that that on the morning after Christmas, we are throwing out our boxes after we have received our piles of gifts. So that in Kenya is just like
I've never gotten a gift in a
me
box.
neither, in a box especially wrapped
Yeah.
and whatever.
You know, Kenya, after Christmas, that's the day that you now warm food that you had cooked the previous day. It's a day for you to rest and relax. Yeah,
But I
so
think
it
that
doesn't-
also goes to this point one of national ethos. We lack a shared beliefs, ideals, and aspirations about Kenya, what Kenya can become if we all subscribe to national ethos. So I think that would also feed into that.
Yeah.
And making us one, the unity aspect. Because a lot of people questioned, can we
Yeah.
actually legislate unity? So maybe we can just have functions that bring us together.
Absolutely. I'm 100% with National Cultural Day because it gets people understanding other people's cultures.
Yeah.
And then the idea of tribalism will probably find its way out.
Maybe.
But just to give you a report, the BBI report was out yesterday. Today, Bomas of Kenya, leaders from all across the country have been summoned by the president, and they will get to understand this. For more, here is just a bit of a report.